Welcome back. I'm so happy to be here and to be talking with you today. Today, we're going to be talking about loving yourself and basically how to love yourself better. Because I know if anyone were to say to you, do you love yourself? I know your answer is going to be, well, yeah, heck yeah, of course I love myself, right? We all think we love ourselves. We all feel like we love ourselves because we do, right? We love ourselves to the best of our ability when we think of loving ourselves. The problem is when we think of loving ourselves, it's very rare that we love ourselves like we love others, right? We don't give ourselves the same respect and treatment and love and feelings that we give to others. It's a different kind of way of loving. And sometimes our loving ourselves is just not enough. Truly loving yourself better. So, how do you know if you love yourself enough? How do you know if you're loving yourself enough? So, think about how you would treat your loved ones, right? How do you treat your siblings, your parents, your best friend, your children, your grandchildren? There's a certain way, your spouse, even, there's a certain way you deal with them and do for them that you probably aren't doing for yourself. For example, you might talk really mean to yourself all the time. And even if you don't do it all the time, you might do it more often than you would someone you said you loved, right? Like you may be talking really mean to yourself about mistakes you've made or about something you're trying to do that you're not doing well or anything that just in general because you don't like how things are going at that moment. But you wouldn't talk those same mean words to someone you loved, right? You wouldn't tell your kid those same mean things. You would try to tell them in a way that was kinder and gentler if they were doing something that needed to change, right? Or maybe you compare yourself to others all the time. You look at who you think someone else is and you say, well, I'm not good. Hey, Fran, how you doing? It's good to see you. Glad you're here, as always. So sometimes you might compare yourself to other people when you don't need to be. And you compare yourself to other people not in a good way. You compare yourself to other people and say, well, I suck. Look at what this person's doing. Yeah, friend, exactly. Exactly. You do that comparison thing, right? We're always comparing ourselves to someone else and thinking they're doing so much better when they're not. They may be doing worse, or they may be doing exactly the same, or maybe they're doing great right now, but when they were where you are, they were doing just as bad as you are now. And you don't know because you don't know where they are in their story. You're just comparing them, comparing yourself for no reason. Another thing that we do to ourselves and we say, well, I love myself, but do you stand up for yourself? Sometimes we just don't. I know when I was younger, I used to work in theater and we had a very crazy abusive director on one show I was working on. And I was the stage manager. And so I was trying to keep things going. And I would defend and protect my crew, the assistant stage managers, all of those people. But he would yell and berate me and do all of these things in public in front of the people. And I never stood up for myself, but I always stood up for them. I always stopped him from abusing them. And he would always come and apologize to me later in private because he knew he was wrong. But I never stopped him in public, and he never apologized in public. And one day I was talking to one of the actors, and they were like, why do you always let him do that to you? And I'm like, well, he always apologizes later. It's just he gets excited. And he goes, and the actor was like, yeah, but he always yells at you in front of us and he never apologizes to you in front of us. And you always take good care of us. We all feel safe, but you never, ever, ever stop him from doing that to you. And it's awkward for the rest of us. And it never occurred to me that I was taking better care of everybody than I was taking care for myself. And I thought I loved myself, but I definitely wasn't standing up for me. But I was loving everyone else. I loved my stagehands and my crew, and I was protecting them fiercely. I would protect my son fiercely. I would protect my wife fiercely, but not protect me. I wasn't loving myself enough. And I know that there are many of you that fit into that same category, even when you don't want to say it. You just take it because it's a sign you need to love yourself better. Not making sure you get enough sleep because it gets in the way of you being able to function. And sometimes it's because you're working so hard and you're trying to get so much done just to prove you're worthy. And you don't want to stop and go to sleep because you don't feel like you deserve it yet, right? You're not worthy. You haven't earned the right to sleep yet. You got to get this work done. And you got to make sure that everybody works. And you can push yourself to the brink of exhaustion constantly. I did that at every job I ever had when I was younger. I did it all the time. When I would leave a job, they always had to hire 2 or 3 people to replace me in the amount of work I did. And that wasn't a brag point. That was, I did work of 2 or 3 people for the salary of one because I was people pleasing and because I wanted to make sure that I was good enough, that I had earned, and I never felt like I did enough. And the truth is, if I had dropped dead on any one of those jobs, they would have replaced me with the 2 or 3 people and paid those 2 or 3 salaries. I was just saving the money. I was not indispensable, and I wasn't good to myself. I had to learn to love myself and give myself a break. I had to love myself better. And again, these are not things that I was doing alone. I see so many people still doing these things. And it's just because they don't love themselves enough. So often we talk about love your neighbor like yourself. And that's a great thing, loving your neighbor like you love yourself. However, too many times we love our neighbor way more than we've ever loved ourselves. So, one of the things that I realized is that I wasn't loving me enough. I was loving my neighbor way more than I was loving me. And that's not a good thing. It's not the best way to keep functioning in the world. You have to be able to love you first before you can love anyone else. You have to love you in order to be able to actually love anyone else fully. Because from the right place. Because when you're trying to love someone and you don't love yourself, it's never from a good place. It's always trying to just prove you're good enough, just prove you're worthy, just, oh, look at me, I'm so good. It's never from the right place. And that also relates to how do you take care of yourself, right? When you struggle with loving yourself enough, it affects your relationship with your body. It's hard to care for your body, which is an extension of you, right? If you don't love you. So you may not move much, you may not exercise regularly, you might do a really grueling exercise routine because you just want to make your body look right. All of that, both extremes, is just not, it's not an expression of self-love. Because when you love yourself and you love your body, right? Even if you want to make improvements, you still love yourself and your body. And so sometimes it looks like choices that can harm you long term, and other times it don't. Drinking a lot and smoking and overeating and all of those things. And I'm guilty of at least the overeating part, right? Just trying to make sure that you are really truly taking care of yourself is an expression of love. You have to figure out ways to love yourself. And just saying you love yourself is not enough. When you really love yourself, you find ways to show yourself, to treat yourself. So when you're thinking about loving you, think about how you love your kid, how you love your spouse, how you love your neighbor, and love yourself that well. Love yourself better. Because most of the time, we say we love ourselves, but we just truly don't love ourselves enough. So that's my talk for today. Let's work on loving ourselves better. All right. I'll see you later. Bye.